Learning to Let Go, a Clone Wars fan fiction by Anakin Skywalker, voiced by true sons of Mandalore as Captain Rex and Anakin Skywalker as Anakin. Rex remained on the landing bay long after the clone shuttle had melted into the deep orange skyline. He knew this moment would come eventually. He had understood from the beginning that finding Echo might also mean losing him all over again. But he had been on such a high these past few days, with his VOD at his side again. He hadn't allowed his mind to prepare for the emotional ache of missing Echo for a second time. Rex closed his eyes, shutting out the thousand distractions nagging for his attention. His duties could wait for now. He allowed himself a moment to reflect, just one moment to reorganize his thoughts, to get a firm grasp on his emotions. It wasn't like the first time he had lost Echo. Back then, there had been Fives, and he had taken it harder than anyone else. The death of a brother was never easy, but Fives, it had crushed him. It was a slow crawl back to his feet after such a blow. Rex only wished he could tell Fives now what he hadn't known back then. That Echo was alive and happy, or at least he would be happy, eventually. Rex's mind called up memories of the brothers he had known and lost in the course of this war. He tried not to hold on to any one of them, but it was in the quiet moments that the guilt pricked at him the most. So many faces, all like his, yet different in their own sort of way. Shinies that never made it through their first mission, soldiers he had practically brought up from scratch and watched as they grew into better leaders than he could ever hope to be. But this time was different. He let Echo leave. He had held out hope that things would be just like old times, fighting shoulder to shoulder alongside his brother as they used to. But things could never go back. Echo no longer belonged here. He had found a new home with the Bad Batch. Although Rex was happy to at least see him off safely, the pain was fresh and all too real. Rex drew in a slow, deep breath and opened his eyes to the bustling shipyard. He welcomed the noise. Silence only reminded him of better times that could never be brought back, when they were all still ignorant enough to believe that war was just one big, glorious game, when he didn't constantly wonder if he'd ever see his recruits through to the end of a battle.
You let him go.
General Skywalker stepped to Rex's side, arms crossed over his chest as he followed the captain's gaze over the landing platform. Rex detected the slightest hint of a question in his tone.
Yes, sir. I did.
Why?
Rex cast the general an inquiring glance. A look of pure wonder played across the Jedi's face.
Well, because Echo is his own man.
You didn't even try to convince him to stay, and after everything you went through to bring him home.
Anakin shook his head, his words drowned out by the roar of a docking gunship. When all quieted again, Rex went on.
These are my men, sir. But not only that, they're my family. I can't keep them on a leash forever. I can't always make decisions for them.
Rex trained his eyes on the helmet in his hand. He ran his fingers along the tally marks etched onto the surface, remembering what, or rather, who, they represented.
Sir, if this war has taught me anything, it's that there are some things out of my control. Anyone's control. Sometimes, you have to let go.
Yeah, I've tried that. But you make it sound so easy.
Rex remembered the eerie, twisted feeling of nostalgia that had seeped into him when Echo gave one final salute.
No, it's not easy, sir.
Anakin's gaze fell, his usual youthful and confident glow replaced with dejection. A long silence passed between them. The two stared out over the landing bay, watching as troops hurried from ship to ship and boarded transports across the base. The hazy sky melted into copper, then pink as the sun rose further over Anaxis. Rex didn't have to guess what was passing through the general's mind, who they were both thinking of now.
Don't worry, sir. I'm sure she's fine.
Rex didn't know what possessed him to speak so suddenly, against his better judgment. He had avoided mentioning Ahsoka whenever possible, knowing how it upset Anakin. But he had come this far. He might as well continue.
Commander Tano is very resourceful. Remember her capture on Felucia? She led others to survive, not to mention herself. She will be fine, sir. I know it.
There was so much more he could say, or should say, but he wasn't sure whether it would help, or only further agitate the General's wounded conscience. Rex half expected the Jedi to throw him a tempered glare, warning him to drop the subject, but he didn't. Anakin only nodded and let his arms fall back to his side.
I don't doubt that, it's just not having her beside me. I almost forgot what it's like to be a one-man show.
A smile flashed across Rex's lips for a brief moment, before he wiped it away and resumed his stoic expression. One-man show. The term was amusing to say the least. Anakin Skywalker never had any problem being the front-runner on reckless missions. Bending the rules was his specialty. Sneaking past enemy lines, jumping from cliffs, or hurdling his captain from them. Anakin continued, pulling Rex back into reality.
But it's too late now. She's gone. If only I had done more.
No, sir.
Rex locked eyes with his general, instinctively reverting to the curt tone of a captain. Anakin's eyebrows raised a fraction. Rex had never addressed a superior like that. But Rex knew regret all too well, the endless circle of guilty thoughts that ultimately led nowhere. And he wasn't going to let anyone else fall into that same trap if it was in his power.
General, you don't give yourself enough credit. You stood by her when no one else would. Ahsoka... Commander Tano made her decision. You respected her enough to let her go.
Anakin shook his head and clasped his hands behind his back.
Sometimes I feel like she never left. I sense her still. But I can't just let go, not completely. Every time I turn around, something reminds me of her. Reminds me she's gone.
Rex didn't completely understand what it meant to sense someone, not in the Jedi way at least, but he did understand loss, and the irreparable hole it left in the heart.
I've wondered what I'd say if I saw her again. To make things right.
There seemed to be a glimmer of hope in Skywalker's voice, but whatever it was, it dissipated in a moment. It was foolish to latch onto an idea like that for too long. Rex stared, surprised at just how much the General was opening up to him. I mean, sure, Anakin trusted him with his deepest secret, his relationship with Padme. But this was the first time in months that he had spoken openly about his old Padawan. Maybe because Rex served as a sort of sounding board. There were some things that you could tell a clone that you just couldn't share with another Jedi. Anakin heaved a deep sigh, clapping a hand on the captain's shoulder.
Better get some rest while you have the chance. I'm sure Obi-Wan will have another job for us soon enough.
Rex nodded. He hadn't gotten a good spell of sleep during their last mission, and the fatigue was beginning to take its toll. All he felt like doing right now was crashing on the nearest cot, if his legs would even carry him that far. But even then, he doubted his thoughts would grant him the luxury of sleep. Anakin turned and led their way across the crowded landing bay, Rex following close at his heels. Then they parted, Anakin towards the war room, and Rex to the soldiers' barracks.
General!
Rex called over his shoulder.
I know you didn't have to take on the mission in the first place. Without you, Echo would still be wasting away in that lab. I wanted to say...
Rex considered his words carefully, and found that opening up was just as difficult for him as it had been for Skywalker.
I just wanted to say thank you, sir, for trusting me.
Anakin's lips parted in a genuine smile.
That's what family's for.
The end.